What would be some of the benefits of changing codes, do you think, from a coach's development point of view?
I've been really lucky that I've worked in like high-level sport across a load of different codes. One of the most beneficial things it does for you is it challenges you to adapt what your philosophies and beliefs are to suit the environment and the situations and the constraints that are put on you within the sport. When you put yourself in situations where you're not comfortable, you're not familiar with the sport, you're forced to learn how to apply that in different situations. And I think that's a really useful skill to have, and it broadens your experience. I think the other thing as well that's really beneficial is you're also forced to listen to coaches and learn the sport intrinsically and kind of be willing to say you don't know, you don't have all the answers.
Is there other things that you've noticed that you think is quite effective in Australian rules football that perhaps isn't commonly done in Australian rules football that you'd like to bring in?
Oh, in terms of things to bring into Aussie rules football from other systems, and not hugely, I think in terms of what we're doing at the moment, one of the big differences is probably the level of training exposure that lads have from a resistance training point of view. But I think on the flip side, one thing I will probably take back to a rugby role, I think the volume of work that these lads can get through in footy, and the volume of running and the intensity that they run at while still taking contact, while still being highly skilled, all that sort of stuff has been phenomenal. And it's certainly opened my eyes to the potential capacities for running, for sprinting, for on-field volume that you can build to if it's done in the right way. I think it's just a case of constantly sort of evolving and picking up the different sort of practices and things you see as you go along and trying to find a way to make them all fit.
What about neck training in Australian rules football? Is that something that is relatively aligned with what rugby players would do? The fact that it is collision-based and contact, not as severe as obviously as rugby, but I guess that the fact that it is 360 degrees and a lot of the contact comes from particularly not knowing where the hits are coming from. How do you sort of tackle on neck strength training for football players?
Yeah, it's actually something we've done quite a lot of. I say a lot of it's been consistent within the program. Most of the lads I'd worked with hadn't had much exposure to neck strengthening beforehand. I'm certainly a big fan of including like a lot of our shoulder strength, our neck strength, our upper trap work in and around a lot of our pushing work. So most sessions we'll try and complement some of our pulls and pushes with some neck isometrics or some holds or falls. We've done some banded flexion extension work as well.
Once you've got the basics going with a player, what are some things that you sort of look to do differently with an Australian footballer that you might not do with a rugby athlete? Yeah,
I think it's probably a couple of parts in the answer to this, but one thing that comes within team sports is your speed exposure and your speed program is heavily determined by your schedule and the time you get to spend on it. So ultimately that will probably determine what you can and can't do within that. And yeah, I'm a big believer in working on general qualities first. So ticking off acceleration, ticking off max velocity, making sure we run well upright, making sure we can switch our legs. So like, again, for instance, on our COD and Axel days, and normally when I get to my contest drills, so we'll do very basic cutting, 45-degree cuts, 90s, Axel, paddle your feet, very basic drills, because again, you've got 45 athletes, you're normally working to a 10-15 minute window. So it's hard to do genuine speed, like a speed session in a football or rugby program. So little doses of those type of qualities, but then making sure we get an opportunity to try and transfer it.
In terms of the strength and power aspect of the role, how do you sort of incorporate like player specific demands and the individualization, if you like, obviously managing a large squad number of 40, 45 athletes?
So in order to do that, you need a good sort of profiling battery as a first point of call. If you're not tracking your general physical qualities, it's difficult to determine where you want to place your effort and your time in the gym. But what we will try and do is, based on that profiling, is we will shift some of the guys' work to be more heavily focused in different areas, right? So we tend to split our guys into 3 or 4 different themes, really. At the Crows, you've got like a strength power group, we've got a hypertrophy strength group, a development group who probably more long-term development or technical development. So we're still sort of building up their foundations. And then we've got an individual group, which are fellas are probably slightly different from everyone, or, have different injury history, different needs, and they sort of get a more bespoke content.